Well, when a restaurant is struggling, and let's face it, just about all of them are during this pandemic, what do? Sometimes they call in a restaurant whisperer. He's my guest next on the Jeff Crilley Show.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but getting into the restaurant business is one of the toughest businesses out there. I mean, the margins are razor thin, and so it's already difficult during good times to have a successful restaurant, but then you get hit with a pandemic and it's, you know, all bets are off. To talk about that today, Alex Lines, he is the CEO of InLine Hospitality. Thanks for coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah.
It's good to see you again.
Well, tell everybody your background, because you go into restaurants and you really help turn things around. What's your background?
My background is I've just been doing this my entire life. I was 17 years old when I went to culinary school. I knew that this was all I ever wanted to do, and I have traveled across the country, and I've worked from everything from hotels to big restaurants to corporate chains to mom and pops, and you know, I got a lot of good experience, and then I came to Dallas to, you know, start being the smaller fish in a bigger pond and work my way up. And, you know, over the last 7 years of being here, I've worked with so many great people. And, you know, eventually I decided that my calling was to turn restaurants around. And so I started InLine Hospitality, and I fell in love with that sort of culture. I wanted to offer people something that isn't getting offered right now, which is that, you know, you can have that career but still be successful inside of that industry. And then, you know, with the pandemic and everything else, I really wanted to help these restaurants keep going and help the people that were working with inside those restaurants live a better life, so they weren't struggling and working, you know, those 14-hour shifts.
Absolutely, and you really do have kind of the Midas touch. We're going to show a clip from one of your concepts. It's called Off the Cuff. It's a sports bar. Wow, that's a cool place.
Lots and lots of fun.
So tell us that if you were going into this place for the first time, you're trying to create a certain atmosphere. I mean, this is kind of a club atmosphere, right?
Especially on the weekends. You know, our late nights, especially pre-pandemic, were very club atmosphere, bottle service, and other things like that. But during the day, we have amazing food. We serve food all the way till midnight. We have large TVs all the way around. And wow. So you walk in, it's very urban atmosphere. It's very Deep Ellum. You know, we're on the very outskirts of Deep Ellum, but we've dragged that line of where everybody parties just a little bit farther to come and hang out with us. And you know, it's just very open and spacious, which is, you know, nice, especially in these times.
Absolutely. So the pandemic, we were just talking about that, so tough on restaurants these days. So many of our favorite restaurants have closed, and it's sad as you know, somebody who likes to go out to eat when your favorite spot has to close. So they will come in and they'll bring in people like you to help check their blind spots, right? Because if you're a restaurant owner, sometimes you're not seeing what the customer sees.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that we do to kind of keep things rolling for them is to go in when they're not actually knowing that I'm going to be there, because that's the best time to really see what a customer sees. And most of the time I'm having this conversation with the owner, not the general manager or the manager on duty, so they don't know who I am. And so I will push to get different services. I will ask the buying questions. I will, you know, see what they know about their menu, and I will take a look at all of the information that is just there in plain sight.
Well, you were telling me a story that you were at a restaurant not long ago, and you were asking about an expensive bottle of wine, and they were kind of talking you down. I mean, that's a classic mistake that a server might make, right? Yeah,
and so, you know, my business partner and I, we went in there to eat, and whenever we were going through everything, I was like, you know, there's this $200 bottle of wine I'm very interested in. Can you tell me about it? And instead of giving me some information or bringing somebody out that might have that information, they were like, well, we have half-off bottles of wine on this list. And so I ended up spending $25 on a bottle of wine where I could have spent $200.
And that's where restaurants make most of their money, is on alcohol sales. Is that right?
Right. And so it was, you know, a big concern for me, and obviously for the owner once we had that conversation, that, you know, this is a training issue. This is something that is easily fixable with the right training program. And if you just have these certain things in place, those kind of things won't happen. And
there's always kind of money leaks inside a company that they don't always see. Maybe they're paying too much for food, paying too much for labor. I mean, what are some typical places where you're able to find savings?
Well, and as you were saying, the margins for profit are so razor thin. So when you look at, you know, are you paying $4.99 for that cut of beef per pound instead of paying $3 something? And the problem is that when restaurants stay in business for long enough, their managers or the owners or whoever it was that started that place, they're not going back and doing those checks anymore. So they're not looking to see, you know, where can I save a little bit of money on my well vodka? Where can I pick up a more popular bottle of wine for less? Where can I, you know, maybe shop around for different foods? And, you know, I've established relationships with my purveyors that, you know, I'm going to bring them business, so they're obviously going to cut me some deals.
Let's talk about the menus, because I've been to restaurants before. We've all been to restaurants where they hand you, it looks like a phone book, and it's like too many choices. Just give me like one page. I mean, do you ever run into that where there's just the customer's overwhelmed?
Absolutely, and I mean, I think that's a huge thing that my partners and stuff at Off the Cuff that we focus on is shrink the menu down, go with what is working, make some changes here and there to keep things lively and fresh, but you know, you have to cross-utilize everything. You have to, you know, use that same cut of chicken here that you do there. You know, chicken sandwich and, you know, chicken dumplings or however it is, and get the most out of that. But then if you're looking at the menu and you have 1,000 choices, there's some people that might even get frustrated and say, you know what, I just don't even want to eat.
Right.
And that's what, those little details are just so important. And you know,
or even, you know, you have a dimly lit restaurant and the type is so small that anybody over 40 can't see the menu. I mean, there's some classic things that I experience as a customer.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's part of getting in there and seeing what your customer sees. And as the owner, you can't do that. You walk in the door and they know who you are. They're gonna, you know, bring you out your favorite bottle of wine. There's no discussions in there. You know, you have to be able to sit down and actually get the full experience of being at that restaurant.
Absolutely. And you've worked with some pretty big names. We're going to put up a roster of some of the brands that you've worked with over time. Those are some big names. So what's the process? If a restaurant hires you, what do you do first?
Well, the first thing that we do is we do that kind of secret shopper type of mentality. We go in, we see what's kind of going on, and then we sit down and we have a conversation with the owner and kind of bring up some of the stuff that we saw. But then as they open up a little bit, we take a look at their P&L, which is their profit and loss, and sometimes they don't even have a P&L. And so then you're like, okay, well, here's another issue. And we just start breaking apart their business from front of the house to back of the house to supplies, and then we start getting into the nitty-gritty, the dollars and cents of everything. You know, how much are you paying this person? What are they actually doing for you? You know, what could maybe we could get more out of? And we just walk through the process of some of the easier things, and then we get down to the details of it.
Well, what I love about it, Alex, is that you've actually done it. I mean, there's a lot of consultants who are telling you what to do, but they haven't walked a mile in your shoes. I mean, it really helps when you're talking to a restaurateur. You've lived their life.
Well, and I think that's the best part about my partners over at Off the Cuff at Allen Concepts, Alex and Tan, is, you know, I came in to help them build their back of the house, and then we turned into a powerhouse team that can build all facets of it, from finance to the bar program to the restaurant. And you know, we have a lot of partners with inside of construction as well, and I think that's something huge whenever you're opening a restaurant or have one open, is somebody that's actually done it. And I think that's why we continue to open the concepts of our own. And you know, Alex has some amazing ideas, and I like to help, you know, build out those ideas. But it also shows my incoming customers that they're physically actually doing this, and not just saying, well, this would work.
Alex, you're very inspirational. We're going to put up your LinkedIn profile so people can get in touch with you. Alex Lines from InLine Hospitality, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate it, Jeff.
You bet. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.